Here's another question from Marcus Ford. Are there rules for transliterating anime theme song lyrics, or do you write them however you think looks nice? He's addressing something that has sort of stumped me on occasion, and that's how you Romanize the Japanese language. Like, for example, if you are writing the word oki, for example, sometimes people Romanize that O with a line over it and then ki, and then some people Romanize it OO-ki because that's phonetically how it's written in hiragana. Something like the word oji. Do you Romanize it as O with a line over it, ji? Do you Romanize it ohji? Or do you Romanize it O-U-J-I? So the thing is, I find when I've Romanized things like people's names and things like that in the past, if I Romanize them a little too literally, like taking the Oji example, if I Romanize that as like O-U-J-I, people that don't really know Japanese, when they see that, they're gonna pronounce it Uji, which is incorrect. So in that case, it's usually better to just Romanize it, I think, just O-J-I. They don't need to know that the O is a long vowel. They're not really going to know the difference anyway. So yeah, if it's things like people's names, I'll sometimes make it just so that it reads better. Also, O-H-J-I, it's kind of busy and messy looking, like Ohuji. It's weird, so I would just shorten it. The other reason that there are sort of some rules to follow by romanization is just so that there's more clarity on what the word actually is. Like the word honya, right? Like the consonant, it's not even a consonant. It's like not a consonant, not a vowel, but the Japanese syllable That one, it's sometimes romanized as an M just by itself. It's sometimes romanized as an N by itself. And truthfully, it's neither of those things. It's really just kind of a grunt with your lips kind of closed. And then depending on where it is in a word, sometimes it'll be sort of like tongue to the roof of your mouth, like you're saying like the ng sound in running. So it's technically not really correct to Romanize it as M or as N because it really is neither of those things. But you'll find it Romanized sort of interchangeably, like the word tempura, a common borrowed word, we use an M. And then like honya, the example I gave earlier, honya, which is bookstore, I've never seen it Romanized as home with an M and then ya. So the reason why we put the little apostrophe after the N there is to show that it is ho ya versus ho nya. And those would be two different words entirely. Hong means book, and then ya means like store. So bookstore, it makes perfect sense, right? But if it's ho and then nya, it's like something else entirely. Like nya is the sound effect a cat makes, and it can mean lots of things. But that's why we use the apostrophe, just for clarity of what the word actually means. Again, if you're Romanizing it so people can like know how to pronounce the word, if they don't really have a understanding of the Japanese language, they're just gonna get confused by the apostrophe anyway. So if it's like a person's name that has, like Sailor Uranus, Ten O Haruka, it's not Tenno Haruka, it's Ten by itself and then O Haruka. Actually, that is an amazing example of like something that looks like shit if you Romanize it properly. So yeah, the O, it means king, and it's actually OU if you're Romanizing it properly. And then the 10 by itself means like the heavens or sky and stuff like that. It's basically sky god, Uranus. But yeah, if you Romanize it 10 apostrophe OU, it's kind of weird, and people who don't know Japanese, when they look at it, they're gonna be like, how do I say that? And they'll be like, 10, ooh, and it's totally wrong. But it's also technically wrong to Romanize it Tenno without the apostrophe. But again, for people that don't really know Japanese or don't understand ten and o and what those things mean anyway, it's kind of better sometimes to just not bother with the apostrophes and then just do an OH for the long vowel, or just an O, or just an O with a line over it for the long vowel. So again, like while there are some set rules, and you'll find that these rules vary from person to person, I find just the most important thing is, especially when you're Romanizing people's names and song lyrics, the most important thing is just clarity for non-Japanese speakers on how you're supposed to pronounce these things. And then it's like, should I write rampu as rampu or rampu. Depending on context and depending on how well the singer pronounces rampu, I would sometimes just Romanize it as lamp, what it actually is. But if it clearly is rampu in the song, in the lyrics, the way it's being sung, yeah, I mean, in that case, since it is a romanization of an English word like lamp or ramp that uses an M, I would probably just Romanize that as an M, again, because it's a little closer to what sound the singer is actually making with her mouth or his mouth. And then I have to use an apostrophe for Genki I. Oh, that word is so hard to say. Genki I, don't I? And it's like, yeah, you do, because if you don't use the apostrophe, it's renai. Renai! It could be like the interior of re. I don't know what renai could mean. Yeah, and when you're singing renai, typically an is counted as its own note, as its own syllable, so it'd be like renai. It would be sort of like 4-syllable word. So, yeah, it helps, I think, to add the apostrophe sometimes in that case, just to make it more clear how many syllables you're singing. And then another question, this one also I kind of do this differently sometimes. He says, some fan translators will translate mayoi nagara or shiteiru as one word, and others will translate it as 2 words. So like mayoi space nagara or shite space iru. And again, see, if you understand Japanese a little bit and you know kind of the grammar structure, I actually kind of like hyphens, honestly. Like if you understand the language, because the nagara, it doesn't really mean anything on its own. It's part of mayoi. It's like, it's giving a different conjugation to the verb mayoi. It means like, while I am wandering versus wandering. So I kind of like hyphens for my own personal clarity in that case. And also it helps break the word up for non-Japanese speakers when they're singing it. Because yeah, if you just type the whole mayoi nagara as like one big long word and you're a fan and you don't understand Japanese and you're trying to sing it, it's this just gigantic long word and you don't know how to pronounce it. So, and then, do you write katakana in all capital letters? I have seen that. I don't know, to me it's a little jarring just to see these gigantic, and it makes it seem like this is really important, you know, how all capital letters give that sort of feel. So I don't typically. And this is, in a way, this question is somewhat irrelevant because now as a professional, I do not translate songs when I translate anime. In fact, I'm requested, like once I was like, okay, I'm translating the first episode of this series for simulcast, here it is. And like, hey, I picked out the song by ear and here it is. And like, oh, we don't do song translations in our thing. I'm like, oh, okay. So I actually don't translate songs anymore for professional translations. Occasionally, like, very seldom, I will go back on my own website or just kind of for funsies or for a person, I will just for free translate a song that I like, just cause. Please do not request that I do that in the comments because I'm not taking requests. This is only like if I want to do something. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Romanizing things. Just the more clear it is for the people that are trying to pronounce the things that you're Romanizing, if it's for songs or if it's for people's names, the better. And then if it's for people that kind of understand Japanese, it's better that it makes the words more clear on what they mean, because there are a lot of homonyms in Japanese. But really, if you know Japanese to any degree, you really should be studying hiragana, katakana, and kanji anyway, so getting hot in here because I turned off the air conditioner to record this. Hoped you liked it! And you could also subscribe to my channel because I'm supposed to ask people to subscribe to my channel, so do that too. Okay, bye!